George Bruno with the 21 Report, the European edition. We're in Warsaw, Poland. And I'm talking today with Jack Donovan. Welcome.
Thanks.
Yeah. How'd it go in there today?
Oh, good. Good. I just presented my biggest book, The Way of Men.
Yeah, a classic book.
Yeah, it has. Like I said, been translated into a bunch of languages, and it's been very influential around the world. Someone actually accused me of changing the election in Brazil recently. That was the thing. There were an article written about like how I'm influencing men in Brazil. Yeah. I'm like, I think that's a little far-fetched.
Right.
But I called my dad and told him if he needs anything handled in a foreign government, I'm his guy now. You know?
Right. Information does make a difference, definitely. If you could sum up The Way of Men in a few sentences, what would you say?
It's the primal virtues that men needed from each other in a survival scenario, which is 250 to 300,000 years of our history, and it's the way we've always judged each other. Strength, courage, mastery, and honor, the tactical virtues, things that men needed from each other in an emergency.
Yes.
These are the things we still look for in men today, and I think that we have to understand what masculinity is before we can talk about how to save it. We have to understand what we're trying to save.
Mm-hmm. What happens if there isn't an emergency? Is there a Way of Men version of emergency preparedness?
Well, I mean, honestly, that's you are preparing for an emergency if you're surrounding yourself with a group of guys who are good at working together, because that's 3/4, of a lot of preparedness is being able to communicate and all that, and having a skill set that you can tap into. But that's obviously one use of having a group of men around, is being prepared for an emergency and having someone to call. Modern society is very atomized, and people are they have very superficial friendships. And if there was a disaster, a lot of people don't even have anyone to call.
Yeah.
They don't really have any men that they can count on in their lives.
You're right. Mm-hmm. It's interesting on social media, for instance, let's just say Facebook. Your connections on Facebook are called friends. And I've heard people say, well, I've got 3,500 friends on Facebook. Mm-hmm. And I always kind of chuckled at that word. They're not really friends. They're just someone that you electronically clicked on.
Would they loan you money?
Yeah, exactly. Will those 3,500 people
loan you $100 or be there when something goes down?
2 in the morning, sure.
Yeah,
exactly. Wait a minute, I thought we were friends.
Right. But I don't think that those are actual friends. Obviously, they're just associations.
Yeah.
I've almost 25,000 Instagram followers, and I'm pretty sure I can't depend on them for very much.
And that's it almost has reinvented the word friend in the dictionary. The word friend in 2019 is different than the word friend, in 1940. And then the new word unfriended. I got unfriended.
Yeah.
I always thought that was interesting, to get unfriended on social media.
Yeah. Well, it means you said something that upset someone usually.
Yeah.
And that's I can't be friends with you on social media.
Yeah.
The funny thing is when you have people who can't be friends with you on social media, but they want to be friends with you in real life.
Yeah. What's that all about?
They can't be associated with you because they're you're too scary.
Yeah.
I've definitely had that happen in the past, but
yeah. And then the whole concept of getting blocked, that whole scenario. So-and-so blocked me.
Yeah. Oh, I delete and block like a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just because, if you're causing me trouble, I don't have time for that.
Yeah.
At this point, it's one thing if it's a longtime friend of yours that now has deleted and blocked you. That's kind of a big deal. But most people, it's like, well, okay, you're causing me hassle. I don't need to deal with you.
Right.
I think there's a very democratic mindset on the internet that people think that their opinion should matter to everyone, and you can't take everyone's opinion seriously. You have to choose whose opinion you actually take seriously.
Tribes are interesting. I know tribes and associations. I know at the Patriarch event, I had sitting across from me Mike Cernovich for one interview, another interview Stefan Molyneux. Interesting, and I had two kinds of responses to that.
Yeah.
One response was, I'm unfriending you because you interviewed Stefan Molyneux.
Okay.
The other one was, I'm friending you because...
Right.
And it was very polarizing.
Yeah.
Some people said, I can't believe you're associating with him.
Mm-hmm.
Other people said, all right, you're associating with him.
Yeah.
And I thought that was interesting how people were taking sides just based upon the person who was sitting across from me at the table.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's everything is kind of an association smear at this point in the media and so forth, and so.
Association smear.
Yeah.
Interesting. What an interesting concept.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's what most people do. It's like you hung out with this person, therefore you're bad. I mean, I'd like to say, a few years ago, I've spoken at different events that I didn't agree with everybody who was at the event.
Yes.
But I grew up in America, and you were allowed to actually talk to people who have different ideas than you, and not necessarily have the same value, but you're allowed to share ideas.
We both have shared stages with people that we don't agree with.
Yeah, and and unfortunately, like today, and it's a very gossip-driven culture that,
Yes.
like, oh, you were seen
Yes.
with this person, and that means that you believe everything that they believe.
Yeah.
And that's just a way of demonizing people, and it's really childish. It's very
Yeah.
schoolgirl kind of mentality.
All right, so we have an association smear.
Mm-hmm.
What is the opposite of that? Is there an association elevation? Can we improve our public image or appearance or reputation by appearing with people that are good for our reputation, or does it
yeah.
only work in the negative?
No. I mean, that's what people do all the time. I mean, yeah, absolutely. You can. I mean, that's why people want their pictures taken with like celebrities and so forth. And
Yeah.
like, oh, I met so and so. Well,
Yeah.
you talk to them about nothing for 1 minute, but
Yeah.
it's they want to have their picture with the person.
Yes.
And I definitely do think that associating yourself with, and then it becomes a tricky game. Like if you have a bad reputation, whatever bad means today, because it changes all the time,
Right.
whatever the prevailing morality is. But if you have a bad reputation and you are then photographed with someone who has the opposite reputation,
Mm-hmm.
it's a danger for them because then you're pulling them to that side, but it's helping you.
Yeah.
And it's definitely a game. And I think that anyone who has any kind of public image actually has to play that game
Yeah.
a little bit. Who do you want to be in a picture with? Is definitely a modern problem because
And
there's a lot of
digital
pictures.
is forever.
Kind of. People have a short memory though.
Yeah.
It's there are things that were really important to people about any given person like
Yeah.
5 years ago, but then they can dig them up some later if they want to
Yeah.
use it against you. But they, as far as for the latest scandal, actually people have a pretty short memory for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw something in the news today, which I rarely ever watch the news because I like living a stable life and not being on a roller coaster. But there was a beauty pageant winner that had her crown stripped from her because of a tweet, a racist tweet. Mm-hmm. And I saw the tweet and I'm thinking, there's nothing really racist about that. Like,
Yeah.
And there's this strange thought police running around. We're punishing people for what they think. In the past, we used to punish people for what they do.
Right.
Now, just for what they think.
Or what they say they think, or what they accidentally said once, or like what they said that was then interpreted at a later date by a different moral standard.
Yeah.
I mean, like there was that. I think the Supreme Court justice or whatever, was dragged through the mud in the media for doing things that were normal when you were a frat boy in the 80s.
Yes.
Yes. Like everything he did was socially acceptable when he was doing it.
Yes.
But times have changed, so now it's not socially acceptable. So now
Yeah.
we're going to judge people by a back standard,
Right.
Which is kind of ridiculous. He wouldn't do that now because he knows that he would get in trouble.
Right.
But that's how things were then.
It's interesting. It used to be. I remember with President Clinton, I smoked pot once, but I didn't inhale.
Right.
Okay, I remember. So he qualified that. And then Barack Obama was president, and then there's pictures of him floating around smoking a joint.
Yeah.
And he was cool.
Yeah.
But just literally, 20 years earlier,
Yeah.
it was condemned.
Oh yeah.
Now it's cool.
Yeah. And that's actually, that whole argument really is pretty fascinating in the way that, and kind of horrible in the way that society's morality shifts so quickly. How many people actually went to jail during that time for marijuana, and then all of a sudden it's cool?
I've thought of that too.
Yeah, I mean, there are people who rotted in jails for years
Because of
this
weed.
thing that is now cool.
Yeah.
But it wasn't cool then, and so like all these people lost, the functional years of their lives.
Yes.
Because of that, and it's sad, but I mean, I guess that's always been that way.
Yeah.
You pissed off the church in the 14th century, you're going to have a bad day.
Yeah, you're gonna have a real bad day.
You know?
What is the 21st century version of pissing off the church? What do you think?
Oh, or racism.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely the ultimate taboo right now.
Yeah.
Any kind of racism. I mean, sexism comes after that.
Yeah.
But any kind of racism, I think, is the new thing that you're going to be dragged through the mud for.
Right.
And which is ridiculous because it's very hypocritical in the way that it's handled. But and it always was, right? I mean, I guess the church was pretty hypocritical in the way they handled that as well.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a new witch hunt.
All right. So there's a new 007 coming,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a black woman.
Sure.
And my comment on Twitter was like, if you don't like it, you're not only sexist, but you're racist. So
Right.
all they need is a 007 who is black, female, and in a wheelchair. For the ultimate, like,
And also a lesbian.
and yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, just like they're throwing things at us
Yeah.
that aren't necessary, and they're making an issue out of something that really should be nothing. They're creating enemies.
Well, they're creating controversy.
Yeah.
I mean, they're creating controversy, which is getting them in the news. And that's really all it is. I mean, they want attention and they want to push that agenda, but also because it's fashionable.
Yeah.
It's not because it's dangerous.
Yeah.
I mean, if it was dangerous, they wouldn't do it.
Interesting.
You know?
Fashionable versus dangerous.
Yeah.
There's no risk in it. is
Yeah,
there?
there's no risk whatsoever. In fact, like you said, the decision is already, you can't criticize it. And so they're doing something that's going to get them a lot of attention, but can't be criticized whatsoever.
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
Gosh. That happens a lot in the Hollywood world.
Mm-hmm.
What about in, what would you say, in like everyday life and politics and so forth? Is there a version of that in politics, in the news?
I mean, I am with you on not watching the news. I don't watch the news at all. I rarely even keep an eye on what's going on.
Yeah.
I started doing it personally because I found that as a writer, I wanted to write about things that were still going to matter in 5 years.
Yes.
But almost everything that everybody's upset about, they're not going to even remember in a month.
Not knee-jerk reacting to things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I didn't want to look back on 10 years of writing and be like, oh, well, here are a bunch of stupid conflicts that didn't matter that I commented on.
Right.
It just seemed like an empty thing.
Yeah.
I mean, do you get to a place where all of a sudden people are talking about the world and you actually don't know what's going on at all?
Right.
Which is sometimes okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't mind being, some people have accused me of being in my own little bubble. I don't mind at all.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mind. I don't need pop culture.
Yeah.
I really don't need it because it's a roller coaster.
Yeah.
It changes from day to day.
Yeah.
And how you react to it will, like what is acceptable 30 years ago is not acceptable now, and vice versa.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's like you said, it's a roller coaster, and it's a roller coaster that really doesn't matter. I mean, it's people moving products.
Yeah.
I mean, entertainment is a product.
Yeah.
And so they're moving this product, and they do it by creating gossip, and that's
Mm-hmm.
we live in a very female world,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's a female mentality, and so everything is very gossip driven.
Mm-hmm.
It's no longer achievement driven; it's gossip driven.
Mm.
And so I think that's most of the culture, and even men's sports is like that now.
Yes.
Like you look at ESPN, and 3/4 of what they talk about is the moral outrage of whatever some athlete did. It's no longer whether their performance. It's now about someone said something or did something, and now we're going to talk about that for 4 hours.
Right.
And it's just a gossipy kind of feminine mentality as well.
Yeah. What would be a more masculine approach to that?
I mean, like I said, achievement. meritocracy, achievement, focusing on the achievement of things, I think is far more masculine than focusing on, you know, whether it's, you know, going with the latest trend, or whether it's, you know, whether who is so and so dating, and you know, did they say something that was morally offensive? I mean, you're old enough to remember Little House on the Prairie.
Yeah.
Like the Nelly character, who's always like telling on people, and is like the Nelly character. I feel like that's all of society at this point. They're like this little moral outrage, this
interesting
person that's really horrible.
Yeah.
Really, actually, it's a horrible person, but they're always like feeding into the gossip and tattletaling on different people and trying to get people in trouble. And that's kind of what the society has become.
What did men walk away with today from your message? What do you think?
Well, I hope they walked away with an idea of a better sense of what masculinity is, and it has always been, versus, you know, a lot of different cultural definitions that come and go. Because that's what I've tried to focus on. I like to you know, talk about things that are eternal, and I think masculinity is something that's been around for all of our species. You know, we probably got a lot of it from the chimps.
Yeah.
And so it's been part of our history forever. And so these are, you know, elemental old things that, you know, have stayed with us for, you know, all of our history. And I think that if they can go back and take that into their lives rather than, you know, the latest trend, I think, you know, it's centering.
Here we are in the heart of Central Europe. Is Europe any different than the United States? What have you noticed?
Well, I mean, the countries are different from country to country. I mean, I spent a good bit of time in Germany, and Poland's a little bit different. But I mean, Poland, it seems to be a little bit more. You know, I found that actually, like, the people who were behind the veil of communism have had less time to get stupid.
Yeah.
You know, they've had. I mean, I also heard that in Germany, like Eastern Germany is supposed to be a little bit more conservative than Western Germany, and there's a little bit. They're a little bit more interested in, you know, keeping men men and women women, and so forth. So.
I'm writing that down. They've had less time to get stupid. You know, I mean, there's so much truth in that.
Yeah, well, they haven't been as spoiled as long. You know, they haven't been spoiled by the West.
Spoiled by the West. Explain that.
Well, I mean, with prosperity.
Yeah.
You know, in terms of, you know, I talked about it in The Way of Men, not my presentation today, but the difference between chimps and bonobos was a big comparison that I made in the book. And you know, bonobo apes, they've always said are the peaceful apes. They may or may not be. That could be a fiction as well that they created. But the reason that they were peaceful was because they lived in a peace of plenty. They didn't have any competition for resources. Yeah. And they just lived in this really you know, lush area with tons of food, and they never had to fight for it or hunt or anything like that. They just and that's the way modern man is. They never have to hunt or fight. They just have to just consume, and because everything is done for them and available to them. Yes. And you know, I think, you know, like maybe more Eastern Europe people who were, you know, behind the wall for a while. You know, they had to stand in line for bread not so very long ago.
Not very long ago, right?
Yeah, and you know, whereas, you know, in the West we've had several generations of extreme prosperity, and so it's easy to, you know, focus on, you know, what gender am I now? Yeah. Because you didn't have to worry about you know, when your next meal was coming. Right. You know.
Yeah, I do remember stories standing in line 3 hours for a loaf of bread.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. Where can people find out more about your work?
I'm really big on Instagram. I mean, that's kind of my main place where I put information out. My Instagram is @StartTheWorld. It's been my slogan for years and years now. And you know, obviously I have a website as well at jack-donovan.com.
Okay, excellent. Cool. A great conversation with Jack Donovan. Thank you, Jack.
Cool, thank you.